Group by ball joint conversion. Next step, there's so many more left. I need to get these tabs off of here so that I can mount the new shock mount, which is a lot heavier. Last time I did these, I put pieces that were cut out to this template, you know, the equivalent of this, and welded that onto the side there to reinforce it. This time I decided to make a whole new bracket because I didn't really care for this, and having to cut all those nuts off, pain in the butt. So how I'm holding it down here is I've got a used sun bolt, and I stick it in there. I'm clamping it down to my table, and I can hold that end down too, and then I'm taking the portaband and cutting it. I was doing it with the 7-inch right angle grinder and a 7-inch thin cutoff wheel, and that worked pretty good. The part that was bugging me was that the clamps, every time I'd shoot the sparks off, they'd bounce off the clamps, come back up and hit me, and it's super loud, it's obnoxious, it's messy. This isn't near as bad. It's still noisy, but not as bad. And getting a straight cut across is a little bit harder, but as long as I get it primarily, you know, most of it knocked down, you know, to 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch, something like that, I'm going to use the mill to open the pocket up. And I think I'll just simply set the tooth per inch, I'll set the cutting parameters such that it can handle a little extra. It just can't go in there and cut these off very well. So cuts really fast when you get a chance. I've been dragging my feet on cutting these because I didn't like the cutoff wheel, couldn't use the bandsaw. And it dawned on me this morning about using this thing. I was like, oh shit. I needed a fixture to hold the arm because I'd like to put it in the mill and let the mill pocket this out. Because I'd like to be able to mount that down on a cleaner surface. So we'll see how it goes. I have the code written. This will stay clamped in the mill. What I'll do is I'll find where I want. I got to look at some of the other arms and that stuff, and I got to figure out exactly where I want my G54, and it's going to be basically in the center of the pocket. So while it's in there, this support, I built the support up here so that this is just almost perfectly level. It's certainly close enough. My hope is to be able to come down in there and chew away all of that stuff, since this is a little bit wider. So I may not get 100%, or I might. I'm not exactly sure yet. This is a test piece. This is one of the ones I screwed up. That's why I got the X's on it. This is the wrong nose for this. The other, I figured it out before I welded the other one together. I could cut this apart and swap noses on it. I'm not sure I'm that energetic. Yeah, anyway, I need some practice pieces anyway, so there shouldn't really be any reason to put a nut and a washer on here to tighten this down. I could if I was relying on the bolt to hold it, but I'm not relying on the bolt to hold it. As you'll see when I put it in there, I will be putting a vise down, a clamp here and a clamp here, and then I'll come down in and I'll pocket that out. I think this jig ought to work, so let's set it in the mill. All right, everything's clamped down. I haven't set my G54 yet. I still need to do that, but I'm just kind of getting an idea, make sure everything has got some clearance. It's only going to be moving around right around 2-inch pocket. Y could vary just a little bit, but I want X to stay the same so that the pocket, the shock mount, is then exactly the same length from the bushing, from the pivot, on all the arms. Certainly, especially between the left and right on the same pair. So well, I'm going to go through and record the the setup and everything like that. Not quite sure how much will make it into the video, but I already have most of the rest of the video already done, and I realized I didn't have any good footage of it actually cutting the arm, you know, in the final form kind of thing. So okay. Now that's not enough to register it, but it does get it close enough, and I just need it to hold the distance for the X. Okay. I also started putting this under there because it was bending that thin piece of plate that's left there. Plus two, it was still a little down, so this leveled it up a little bit more, making it easier for me to, for the short flute length, to be able to go down in there and make sure I got below the bottom of this surface and still get it cut. So what you're going to see is I did a 2D pocket to cut all this out, and I start with the Z0 basically at the top of the arm down inside the pocket here. It cuts all that. I just simply duplicated and did the same thing over again rather than I tried something different before and I didn't like it, so just duplicating the pocket again works just fine. Because the first time it comes down, because of the way these brackets change, some of these pieces are thicker and thinner, it comes down close to the center and it bores down and it starts above these. So I don't have to worry about it just ramming down into a piece of metal. It comes down close to the center, it starts boring, and sometimes it'll hit one of these as it's boring. Just depends on the arm. And that's been working really well. And so then it goes out wide enough that a lot of times it just takes off the majority of this, but not necessarily always. So I can tell you right now that it'll take all of the back one off, but it probably won't take all the front one off. It'll leave about 1/8 of an inch there, because I moved the X back about 1/4 inch from when I first started. But the goal is, I think I've mentioned it already in the video, that I want X to stay the same distance from, ouch, that was sharp. I want X to stay the same distance from the pivot point here. Okay, so I don't ever change X. I'll come in and I'll bring it down and I'll zero out X. And then I'll bring down Z and I'll get in close and I'll eyeball Y to get Y lined up. There's a hole down in here, and that seems to be pretty dang close to center. It was cut into the arm when it was stamped kind of thing, so that appears to be pretty dang more accurate than the brackets. Some of the brackets are a little twisted, skewed, back and forth, you know, not placed exactly the same, so the hole for the Y seems to be very accurate. I tried using that for X to start with, and I didn't like that. Then I'll set the Z, but the first thing I got to do is clamp it down so it can't walk around. And these handles are just a little too short. And that's definitely a lot of clamping force. Okay. I get X really close, just as a reference. I don't worry about putting it exactly to 0 because I'm not changing it. But I do want to get an idea where it's supposed to be when I drop it down in there. So. I don't know how much of this I'll be blocking. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mist on now because the camera's in my way, and then I'll raise the head back up and One thing I did forget to mention is, and you can just see the lip there, between the first pocket, on the second pocket, I'll have a 5/1000 stock to leave. So there is a little edge there, and that's basically so when the sides are left tall, because, you know, it's not perfectly centered, the previous shock bracket wasn't perfectly centered, that kind of stuff, it leaves these taller walls. That way if I do go above the flutes on the cutter, I'm not rubbing. Okay, that's basically the biggest thing. And I don't remember the feed per tooth. I want to say the first one going through is 2 thou per tooth on a 4-flute Lakeshore Carbide fire plug, 3/8, 4,000 RPMs. Oh, and the step over is 20 thou. Okay, on the second one, since the majority of the metal's already been removed, the first, I mean, because when it does those sidewalls on the front, I mean, it can take 3/8 of an inch height. The second one, it's not going to be as tall. So after it bores down, it goes to, I think, 3 thou per tooth and a 40,000 step over. So that's part of the reason why it cuts the second pocket so much faster. And the total run time is 7 minutes and 10 seconds. I thought I had it down around 6, but I guess not. Part of that could be because I don't have the rapids turned up. I haven't bothered because, you know, I like to see it come down slowly just in case. Then when it lifts up out of this, moves over and starts to bore down the center, you know, who cares how fast that's going? It's moving an inch. What I want to make sure of is that, oh yeah, I can't make it sit down any deeper or I won't be able to get the socket on. Oh yeah, and it's hitting on the other side. Okay.